You're listening to a podcast by Oak Magazine. I would like to acknowledge the Wadarrung people as the traditional owners of the land on which this episode was recorded. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberly Finesse, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. 4 years ago, Leslie Carvitto left a 9-to-5 digital marketing job for her own creative pursuits, and she refers to it as one of the best decisions of my life. While she was working at the digital marketing agency, Leslie started experimenting with photography and writing. She began defining herself as a multi-passionate creative and started to let go of the idea that she needed to grow up and out of her idea of what a successful life should look like. Leslie's intuition grew louder, and she knew there was something more waiting for her. Leslie and her husband moved to Australia shortly before the country, and more specifically Victoria, was sent into lockdown. Still, she forged on and built a new business in a new country. On Wadarrung Land, Leslie creates vibrant and authentic imagery for female business owners and conscious creatives. Leslie shares with us her business journey, why she initially and intentionally said yes to every opportunity, the importance of asking for reviews and building community, why branding is important, and lots more business advice. Meet my friend Leslie from Leslie Carvitto Photography. Hello, Leslie, and welcome to our special 5-part series in celebration of International Women's Day.
Thank you so much for having me. I am truly honored to be chosen to share a bit of my journey and my story on your podcast.
Well, I'm excited to have you. We have not met in person, but we've seen each other today because we had the video on before we hit record. But we've sort of connected through Instagram, haven't we, over the last, I want to say 2 years or maybe 12 months? Yeah, I mean, it's all a blur, isn't it?
Yeah, with COVID, I don't know what time and space have done. It's could be 2 years, could be 12 months. I know it's 2022. I do know that.
Oh, exactly. I'm just like, yeah, this is a restart this year and it already feels really, really good.
I agree. Yeah, it feels different.
It does. My gosh, it does. Thank goodness. When you sent me through your pitch for this podcast, you included a line in there that just grabbed me straight away because it's something that I've thought about since starting Oak, and that is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So, depending on the age in which you asked this question, for a long time, I wanted to be an Olympic gymnast. So, when people ask me what I wanted to be, that was usually what I gave them. That was the answer,
Wow.
which I'm obviously not. Spoiler alert.
Where did that come from? Like, was gymnastics something you were interested in? Had you seen someone and wanted to model yourself off that, or what was it?
I started dancing really early in life, and both my sisters had taken dance, and I think I just had watched them do it. So I, of course, was like wanted to be like them. Got into dance, and then every once in a while, our teacher would roll out like a tumbling mat, and we would do cartwheels and different things. And I was always more interested in the tumbling aspect. I wanted to flip around and do somersaults, and I think one day the teacher just told my mom, like, hey, I think you should probably put her in gymnastics. She has a lot of energy and she seems to really like when the mats rolled out. So, yeah, I just started gymnastics when I was probably 6 or 7, and was just obsessed right away. So, yeah, watched the Olympics, had a lot of, that was the time around like the Magnificent Seven, if you remember them.
Not
They won.
really. I
Yeah.
probably really got into it with Simone Biles. I think that's sort of,
Oh,
who
yeah.
I've followed.
She's a legend.
Oh my
So yeah,
gosh,
this was
amazing.
back in like 1996, but yeah, just became quite obsessed with the sport. And so yeah, when people said, "What do you want to be?" I didn't think about it in terms of a job necessarily. I just said, "Well, I love gymnastics. I want to be an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah. I love it. Well, you're doing gymnastics of a different type these days, and that's running a business. I feel that that's pretty much, tumble mats and high bars and all the scary stuff. Did you want to give us a little bit of your background? Like, how have you come to, going from gymnastics at age 6 and 7 to launching your own photography business? And I'm assuming there's a little bit of a jump over countries too. You've obviously come from the States to Australia.
Yes, yeah. So my background, to put it into a shorter, condensed version for the listeners, I was born and raised in a small rural agriculture and farming town in Central California. So it's about 40 minutes from the Monterey Bay, if anyone kind of knows where that's at. But it was a wonderful, really quiet place to grow up. I had a pretty typical childhood. Both parents, two older sisters. We spent a lot of time outdoors, so taking day trips to the ocean or camping. We spent a lot of weekends up in the mountains. And I was always really active, obviously, in sports, like I said, gymnastics and clubs from a really early age. But I eventually, so I'm 5'10". And again, that's in a totally different, I haven't been able to switch over the metrics with Australia and Hawaii. So I'm quite tall. And I got to a point with gymnastics where it just, my body type wasn't the right one to continue with. So I switched over to volleyball and ended up giving all of my time and energy to that. And it worked out really well because I received a scholarship to play at Hawaii Pacific University. So I ended up moving to the island of Oahu when I was 19, and I played volleyball while studying public relations and communications. And I kind of always assumed that once I was done with university, I'd move back to California, but I just loved living island life so much that I ended up staying for 7 years. And then I eventually met my husband, moved back to the mainland, and lived in Seattle, Washington for a bit, and then came to Australia. So that's kind of the background in terms of building my own business. That kind of started off with a hodgepodge of offerings. So I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to feeling quite multi-passionate or being pulled down a lot of different paths or wanting to explore different things. And I've always been quite curious. And so there were a lot of different things I wanted to do. So when I first started out, I was literally offering copywriting, social media, basic web design. I was a personal assistant. I took on so many different jobs, in part because I really enjoyed the diversity and it kept things really interesting, but also because I needed to make money. So I was just, if someone asked me if I could do something and I felt pretty confident that I could, I'd say yes, and off we went. Um, but yeah, it wasn't until I came to Australia that I really decided to focus on photography. And I feel like my husband and I moved here 3 years ago, and landing here kind of created this blank slate and gave me a chance to step back and think about what I actually wanted to spend my time and energy on. And I've always felt a really strong connection with female business owners and female artists. And I just knew that uplifting them through writing and through photography was what I wanted to do. And so that's essentially what I've been doing for the last 3 years since landing in Australia.
Now, when you say what you were doing was quite diverse, as you said, social media, websites, sort of anything that came your way that dropped in your inbox, I can
Yeah.
so relate to that with my first business as well. I don't think I niched at all, and I know we're always told to, find a niche and fill it, but I think, as you said, when you're starting out, you've got to pay the bills, and you do when you come from marketing comms and PR, you have all these different skills that it is like, well, they actually are all integrated. They complement each other. Like, why wouldn't you? Um, Through
Absolutely.
those years, though, did you obviously diversity is fantastic, but did you find yourself maybe being a little bit more exhausted because you're always switching? Like you're sort of not, not staying within that
Yes.
that one lane or that, yeah, I suppose that niche per se.
Yes. 100%. I think everything that you said rings so true for me. And one thing that I heard that kind of when I was feeling pulled in so many different directions and like you said, a bit exhausted because it does take a bit for your mind to kind of switch in and out of all those different lanes, I suppose. I just kind of kept this quote in mind: clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So I kind of kept that at the forefront. And I knew that if I continued to say yes to certain things, eventually I would figure out what I should start saying no to. So, yeah, I think for anyone out there who might be stuck in, I guess, in that next step where they're like, I don't really know what I should do. I want to do this or that, or, they have all the options available to them. I would say clarity comes from engagement, not thought. Give it a try. And I think intuitively, even if it's not right away, you'll begin to niche down or you'll begin to figure out what actually doesn't light you up, or maybe what you're not actually that good at, or, um, yeah, what it is that you actually want to do. Because I feel like it's really important to know what you don't want, in conjunction with what you do want. So yeah, I did give myself a good, I'd say, 2 years of trying a lot of different things before I figured out that photography was kind of it for me. And it did take me a while to transition and to let go of clients that were paying me for personal assistant work or for copywriting work, just because it took time to transition and create a flow of clients with photography.
Yeah. And it's the client aspect that I think is the hardest. I mean, you could always let go of any of, say, five, income streams that you're doing, but it's actually having to say no to them, like to get to that point and say, look, I'm actually going to only specialize in, in your case, photography, especially when, as you
Hmm.
said, they're really good clients. They've built trust in you. Yeah, and you just don't wanna leave them hanging either. I know it took me so long to transition out of my first business, Right Style Communications, and fully into Oak. Um, and it just those first few the new ones that came in were easy to say no to. Um, it's been the ones that had been with me so long that were really hard to say, "Look, actually, I'm just focusing on the magazine now. I'm not doing social media management or building websites or anything like that."
Yeah, and I also feel like with me, I had a bit of that scarcity mindset where I just felt
Mm,
really nervous to let go of what I already
yeah.
knew and what I knew I was good at. And again, like you said, you'd created the relationship already. It was a good working relationship. I've been so lucky to work with so many talented women that it wasn't that I didn't want to work with them anymore. I just knew that if I kept doing that, I was losing the time that I wanted to put in to hone in my craft with photography and to kind of launch that and make that go somewhere. So, yeah, that scarcity mindset was something I really had to let go of, well, what if I let go of these clients and I never get photography clients?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what if the shift doesn't happen?
And when you start to think of it in dollar terms, let's be honest, sometimes you could be saying goodbye to, a $200, $300, a week retainer. It's
Yeah.
hard to let go of that income, especially when you are your own business person, isn't it? I mean, there's no one
Mm.
saying it's okay. Yeah, we'll still give you the money somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm saying no to money. Like people are offering to pay me for a service, and I'm saying no. I think that's always has been the hardest thing. Yeah, and why no can be so hard to say. But as you said, by saying no to one thing, really does open up a yes to so many more aligned options. Can you remember, like, how did you get your first clientele? How did you start building them?
Oh, I'm actually trying to think who was like my first client. Actually, I don't really remember. I think because the transition wasn't like a hard stop. I was still doing all these things, and then I kind of had a couple photography clients coming in, and so yeah, it took a little bit to switch over. In terms of growing my client list, thankfully it happened pretty organically once I got to Australia. I think once I got really clear on who I wanted to work with and who I wanted to serve, I just made sure to use language like on my website or social media that was really speaking directly to them and the problem that I could help them solve. I also had a client really early on who was basically my dream client. I don't even know how she found me. I think it was Instagram. But like, I had gone through creating the ideal customer avatar and all that kind of stuff. And then she dropped in my inbox and I was like, oh my God, you're it. And then once I worked with her, she really helped connect me to her community, which was honestly full of more ideal clients. And I was just like, oh, thank God for referrals. But aside from that, I've definitely done a lot to promote myself and increase awareness of my business. So just doing little things like collaborations or giveaways, interviews, podcasts like this, making sure that I ask for like testimonials and reviews, post photo shoots, making sure I ask for feedback that you know, whoever I'm working with feels really well taken care of and is really happy with the final product. And then also just building community, both online and offline with events and one-to-one meetups. Like it is very normal for me to find someone on Instagram that I think is doing cool things and just message them and say, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I would meet you for a coffee in a heartbeat, Leslie.
Oh, 100%. You just got to come to the
Yeah,
coast.
I should.
Or I can come inland.
Oh my God, come inland. Yeah, you'll love it. There's not a beach inside. Our closest is a good 3-hour drive. So, but
Road trip.
oh, absolutely. It's all the time for road trips at the moment. We can finally travel, and it feels really good to network in person, I think. Now, what I took from what you were just sort of saying there was, you were picking up things like, your marketing avatar. So, designing that ideal client. And in the social media workshops, I always say, you're not talking to everyone. And you can't, like, it just won't land. You actually need to speak to one person. Your audience isn't everyone. And it's so funny because people are like, oh, but I want to sell to everyone. Yeah, but narrow it down. There are a couple of other marketing things in there that you mentioned as well. Are they like the transferable skills that you've taken from your 9 to 5 and applied to your own business?
Definitely. So my 9 to 5 before I quit to focus on freelancing was working for a digital marketing agency. So most of what we did was help businesses rebrand or create new websites. So we did website design and development. I definitely learned so much about marketing, and as much as working in the corporate world was not for me in the long run, it's like all of those valuable skills and lessons that I use now in my business, it was so worth it to stay in those roles just to gain that experience and honestly to get paid to learn. I think that's one of the best things about working in corporate. um, yeah, so marketing, client management was a huge one, just knowing how to manage expectations and anticipate people's needs, knowing how to be a professional communicator and follow through, be organized, how to juggle projects, and also how to work with people across different industries because we had such an array, such a diverse group of clients come through. It was healthcare, construction, lawyers, ecom, and most of the people, I was doing account management, so I was kind of overseeing the whole project. And most of my clients were, you know, probably twice my age, so much more adult than I was at the time. And so, yeah, just learning how to work with clients who were at different levels than I was or in different fields was really, really helpful.
So obviously you have those transferable skills that you've brought over. Has there been anything else that you've done or anyone that you've worked with that's helped you become a business owner? I mean, I want to say that there's no manual because I still feel there isn't. There's lots of obviously, little courses and like, gosh, you could Google and pull up 101 blog posts, but sometimes there's not something that speaks like to you, your industry and
Yes.
what you want to do. I think especially the women in business sector as well.
Mm,
Yeah. So is
hmm.
there anyone or anything that has helped you through the process?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about leaving my corporate job, one of the things that really inspired me was this is when I was living in Seattle. I had a community around me of business owners and freelance creatives. And so I was already starting to see they were kind of my expanders in a way. I was seeing that you could make it work. because before then I was kind of still stuck in that very traditional, it's the responsible thing to work a 9 to 5, to have a 401k, which is in Australia, that'd be like getting a super from your
Great,
employer.
because I was like, I've got no
Um,
idea.
yeah, we're like, what is
Yeah,
that?
401k, I like the
Just
sound of that.
like have a salary. Um, that's kind of more of the traditional path that, you're quote unquote supposed to follow after you graduate from university. You go get a job. And that was, that was more or less what I had seen and more or less what I thought I should do as well. But then I moved to Seattle, and again, this community around me was super creative and just putting things together and making it work. And they were all my age. And so I was already kind of in that place of thinking, okay, like this actually could be possible for me. Like other people are making it work. I can too. Um, and then once I actually quit my job and started my hodgepodge of other jobs, I had two really incredible photographers that really took me under their wing, and I assisted with them on a regular basis. So a lot of my learning was accompanying them to photo shoots, asking a lot of questions, and really just kind of observing the way that they worked and handled with clients. And I'm a very kinesthetic learner, so just being able to follow them on set and help with lights and styling, like that was a huge, huge advantage for me. So I'm all about like the apprenticeship role.
Yeah.
That was just incredibly helpful.
So, what have you found then the difference between, say, the States and here in terms of business and creativity? Like, are there some standout differences at all?
That's a good question. I think I think there's something about honestly just Australia feeling and being much less crowded than the States. I think the population in the US right now is somewhere over 332 million. And I think the population in Australia is about 25 million. So here it definitely feels more spacious. And I feel like the lifestyle is more laid back. There's more of an emphasis on balance between work and families and hobbies, and there's even something about the Surf Coast in general. Like, I've never met so many female business owners. I've never met so many people who just took it upon themselves to build something out of thin air. The culture in the US feels, it's certainly entrepreneurial. Like, people go there to build businesses, but it feels a bit more hustle
Mm.
culture. And not that there's anything wrong with building a business to make money. That's great. I want women to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it I think in the States it just feels maybe more driven by, yeah, just maybe more driven by money and less by purpose. And that's a blanket statement. That's just kind of, I guess, it's more of a feel. I don't know if that's actually true, but here I come across more people, and obviously women specifically because I work with them, who I just feel start a business based purely on purpose and passion. Like, they're just so obsessed with creating this one thing that they have to do it, and they have a lifestyle that supports it, versus I don't know if that opportunity is always readily available in the US. It just feels really crowded. Even like the business world feels crowded. Like, there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things, but it's all kind of the same, and it's hard to make yourself be heard and be different, I suppose.
That's interesting because I suppose, for many of us that are
Yeah.
living here, we're like, oh, do we need another earring brand? Do we need another cafe? And the thing
Yeah.
is, yes, we do because we all do it differently. And I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
you looking in, it's, to hear that, yeah, there is enough space to do that. We're not at that crowded capacity yet. Should, yeah, maybe give some people some encouragement. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. And I think, I don't know if this is true too, and I hope I don't piss off any Australians, but I feel like Australia sometimes is like a couple steps back
Yeah, no.
from the States. I really hope I don't anger
Absolutely
anyone.
not. Hey, I don't know if I'm pissing
That's
off people
ignorant.
now, but no, I agree with that. It's the way it's always been looked at. I think that you'd go to the States and sort of see what's the next trend. Yeah, so no, definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it just feels like maybe there's more opportunity
Mm.
even in that sense where things are moving a little bit slower, or someone hasn't gotten to this idea yet, but maybe it's all over the place in the States, and so yeah, I just feel like there might be a little bit more opportunity here.
Do you struggle with bookkeeping or wonder how your business is doing financially? Yep, me too. Meet my finance friend and sponsor of this episode, Sarah Henney from Henney CFO. Sarah is based in Longreach, rural Queensland, and is empowering women to make confident financial decisions with her new flagship program, Bookkeeping for Profit. This unique online bookkeeping and business course provides you with the information, systems, and support you need to set up your own business, understand GST, read a P&L, manage cash flow, all of it and more. Work through the online training at your own pace with weekly support and access to a community of like-minded businesswomen from rural and regional areas who, like you, want to change the game, have a crack and be confident in their bookkeeping, because you've got to know your business to grow your business. If you want to know more about the program or register for a free masterclass and work with Sarah, head to the show notes or find Sarah on Instagram at HennyCFO. Now back to the episode. So you've obviously come to Australia and you said you've been here for 3 years, is that right?
Yes. So we spent the first year in Brunswick, and then essentially neither my husband nor I are city people. We've lived in cities, but we've never actually considered ourselves. I mean, we love the food, we love the culture, we love being able to go to a show every once in a while. But I mean, we're in bed by like 9 o'clock. So it's not like we're really utilizing city, the nightlife or anything. And we just ended up driving down to the coast probably 2 to 3 times a week to surf and to use the trails. And so probably I'd say a couple months into living in Melbourne, we just said, all right, when our lease is up, we're figuring out a way to get out to the surf coast. And then we moved to Janjuk in 2020, right before everything shut
Oh
down.
my
So
God, that
it was
is
good timing.
the best timing.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, you probably really haven't explored a lot of what we have to offer here. You spent 2 years in
Not
lockdown,
as
you poor thing, in and
I
out of
know,
lockdowns. Oh,
not as much as I'd like, but I did when I lived in Hawaii. I very randomly bought a one-way ticket to Australia. So in my early 20s, I did a backpacking trip and started in Sydney and did the whole East Coast. I ended in Cape Tribulation. So I have seen a lot of the East Coast, but that was early 20s. So
yeah.
there's a lot more to be
Oh,
explored.
absolutely. So let's talk about the trajectory of your business, highs and hurdles. What has been a wow moment for you?
I mean, I know this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but honestly, the biggest high for me is just feeling so incredibly connected and aligned with the work that I get to do. I have obviously been in jobs where I do not feel connected, where I go into the office every day and I think, there's got to be something different. There's got to be something more. I know this isn't for me, but I'm not sure what it is. And I'm scared to like take the leap. And so I just don't take for granted that I get to combine like my passion and my creativity for photography with my love for empowering and amplifying women's gifts and talents. I just feel like women deserve so much more time in the spotlight. And so much of our conditioning is about not like tooting our own horn, basically. And so I kind of just feel like I'm here to change that and to make sure that yeah, women feel safe to be seen and they feel proud and that they want to step in front of the camera and show people who they are. And so honestly, the high is like I still get a buzz when someone emails me or books me. And just knowing that they're trusting me to help capture and tell their story is like the biggest honor to me.
Mm, absolutely. We do struggle with being our own cheerleader, of, taking the
Mm,
microphone, of even if we don't own a business, even if we're working for someone else, to step forward and say, Yeah, look, I'd love to speak to the media, or I'd love to be, a project lead on this. This is, what I've done. I mean, it comes back to the whole fact that when we apply for jobs, typically if we don't tick all 10 boxes, yeah, females will generally think that they're not qualified for that position. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
what's that stat? It's like if men feel like they're 60 or
Oh,
70%,
I think that's it.
they'll just apply. Yeah. And then women, it's like we feel like we have to be 100%
Yep.
to even put our name in the hat.
Oh,
What is that?
I don't know, but it's so funny because obviously One Roof, we're both part of the One Roof community, and they had pitched a job that is, I think it's like a digital assistant, and it actually says in the bio, like, even if you only tick 6 of these boxes, please apply. And I thought, oh, that is
Yes.
just so good, like just giving someone, um, that nudge that, hey, you actually don't need to tick all of these boxes. It's okay. But as you said, it's that you don't want to come across as braggy or a know it all. You know what I mean? I think that's that,
Mm,
you grow up and you said, oh,
mhm.
people don't like know it alls or things like that. Whereas, yeah, I think we need to
Yeah,
be.
and it's the difference too between like the language and the way that we perceive women who are confident and self-assured versus men who, like that you would use that kind of language for maybe a man in business, but for a woman that could be, oh, she's kind of narcissistic, or she's kind of a bitch, or she's kind of bossy, or what is that saying in Australia? Is it tall poppy
It is
syndrome?
tall poppy
What is
syndrome. Yes. Yep.
that? And that remind me what that means. Is that where like if like kind of the higher you get, the more people want to cut you down?
Pretty much. Which
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I mean, I don't understand it. I see it happening, and it's again, it's just that use of language, and that no, it's not bragging. It's actually celebrating our accomplishments and showing what we can do with hard work and smarts and things like that. And so, I mean, you've talked about your highs in business, being on purpose, able to connect with other women, that sort of thing. What about hurdles? What's been the hardest thing of running your own business?
I think it's probably the same as many solo business owners, is just working by yourself sometimes can feel quite isolating and lonely. I'm definitely an extrovert and I love working in a team environment where I can collaborate and bounce ideas off other people and get instant feedback. And, for the majority, obviously, when I'm at a photo shoot, I get to do a lot of that collaboration. And when we're, creating the mood board and I'm learning more about their brand, I get all that there. But then I come back to my computer and it's, I'm editing by myself, I'm doing the marketing, I'm changing up my website, and it's just me. And and it's also easy to get off track when it's just me. Like sometimes I don't hold myself accountable to doing what I actually know I need to do to move the needle.
There's again a fine line between flexibility and motivation and being
Yes,
accountable.
yes, it's mhm, definitely.
Yeah.
You have to be so motivated to create a structure for yourself when it's just you, because you're so right. You can kind of just drop the ball and be like, well, I'll do that tomorrow. Like, I
Yep.
don't have to do that today.
No. I can
There's
jump on
no
tonight
boss
and do it.
telling you.
You
Yeah,
don't
there's
have to
there's
work
no
9 to
manager,
5.
no. Mhm. And like I don't want to. So really I'm just living into the lifestyle that I've
Yep.
created for
Yeah.
myself.
It's just,
But I've found in the last like 2 years what's really helped is investing in coaching. And then I've started like a women in business group here out on the Surf Coast to help connect all of the amazing female entrepreneurs that are down this way and who are just looking for more support and looking for in-person events. Obviously, we just had our intro party. I'm trying to think, in December. I think it was planned for April of 2021, and we didn't get to it until December because of COVID. So that's something I'm really looking forward to in the near future, is having a lot more in-person events to connect all of these women, because I know that we're all kind of sitting behind our own computer screens by ourselves and just really craving connection.
absolutely. Yeah. social media workshops have kicked off for me pretty big this year, and also some networking events coming up. So yeah, just to be out and about again, and just I think being able to connect with people in real life and sit down and have coffee, and it's just you don't get that over Zoom. You really don't. Look, Zoom's been amazing to connect, through the pandemic, but yeah, for a lot of us, regardless, I think if you're an extrovert or introvert, you actually need human connection, in person
Mm,
connection.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's definitely good. I must admit, I'm not fit. I'm not workshop fit at the moment. In that it's been so long, since I suppose being in a group situation for X amount of hours, and
Mm.
yeah, it's definitely different.
It's
It
tiring.
is.
It's like you have to get those muscles back.
You
Like,
too. Yeah.
yeah, the networking muscles.
Absolutely, and come up with more
Yeah.
exciting questions. And so, what's been happening the last 2 years? Or,
Oh
yeah,
my
do you know what I
gosh,
mean? Like
yeah.
it's almost that you're not allowed to talk about that period, but at the same time, yeah, it's all just really
Yeah.
tricky. But onwards and
Yeah.
upwards this
It's
year.
like, what else do you talk about?
Exactly. Well, what I want to talk about with you, before we let you go, is actually what you do, and that is branding photography. I want to talk about why it's so important for your business.
Yes. Amen. So branding photography is so important for your business because I 100% believe that it's the person behind the brand and the business that makes it truly unique. So I always tell women, and especially the ones that don't want to jump in front of the camera, which I have to say is definitely over 50% of my clientele. I seem to attract a lot of introverts who don't want to have their photo taken. But I always like to remind them that honestly, they are the heart and soul of their business, and that people genuinely, like, they really do want to see and know who they're supporting when they're making a purchase from you. And so, like, I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I'm on someone's website is I go to their about page because I want to create a connection with them, and I truly bum out if there is no photo or information, or worse, they have no about page. I'm like, but who are you? Like, I want to know who you are. So I also think, considering that there are so many businesses offering either almost the exact same or very, very similar products and services, it's even more important to show up as a business owner and to connect with the people that you're trying to serve on a deeper level, just by sharing your story and allowing yourself to be seen, even if that's only in a photo. But it definitely strengthens the like, no, trust factor. And it can really be the difference between someone choosing you or choosing to go with someone else. So, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
super important.
Even just it's Instagram for me. That's, where I look. And if I can't see
Mm.
who owns that business in that, 12 images, it's, yeah. Or
Yeah,
there's,
you kind of want to move
I
on because there's
do.
nothing more to
Yeah.
connect
I
with.
want to be able to write on a caption, oh, hi, Leslie, that looks great, or just something like that. I want to be able to use that person's first name as well. So, I mean, that's something else that I
Mm.
look for. Where's their name? Like, who actually owns this business?
Yeah.
And again, it's a remarkable how strong that connection can be these days in terms of following or buying from a brand versus,
Hmm.
yeah, not so much following or maybe looking at a competitor. So, people, get out from behind your screens, go and get some branding
Yeah.
photos.
Especially product-based
Ah,
businesses, I feel like they really wanna hide behind their product, and they think that, I can just, like, people aren't they're not interested in me, they're interested in my product. I think service-based businesses understand a little bit more that they need to show up and have their face, because they're a little bit more their brand.
mm,
It feels more personal. But product businesses, I say the same thing to them too, like, you mentioned earring,
I've,
like, do we need one more earring designer? And it's like, well, yes, and show us what makes you different, like, what's different about your process, what's different about your materials, what's different about um, like, the kind of art that you like and how you bring that into your earring designs. Like, I truly believe that there's something out there for everyone, but you have to put yourself forward and you have to show that you're the one for
yeah.
someone.
I was thinking the
So
same
yeah.
one, Leslie, the earrings. Going to an earring account page and just seeing the product and they're always the same. They're always flat laid. Like, actually show them on
Mhm.
someone, or show me yourself on making them, and all of that. Like, that is all part of your brand story, and what makes me
Yeah.
want to follow, support, like, no trust, all of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely. So, what is next for you? What does 2022 look like?
So 2022 looks like motherhood.
How exciting. My gosh.
Yes. So I am honestly, I'm due any day now. So yeah, we're pretty close to the big journey starting. I suppose the journey has already started, but yeah, to be honest, I haven't really thought too much about setting business goals
Mm,
this year because I this is my first child. I have no idea what the next few months or year will look like, and I'm really just trying to surrender and stay really open to whatever this phase offers. Um, but I mean, I know that I'll be really anxious to get back into photography and working with women again. And I'm particularly feeling really pulled to expand who and how I shoot, I
mm.
suppose. Like a good portion of my clients are female business owners and artists and entrepreneurs. Um, but I'm feeling pulled to branch out and do more photo shoots that really celebrate women at all different stages in life. So from business to babies to creative self-expression. I've actually gotten a few clients in the last few months that just book a photo shoot just to celebrate themselves,
Oh,
which like makes my heart
yeah.
swell. Um, and it's just such a great reminder that like you don't have to have a business to book a photo shoot and to have really lovely pictures of yourself or, to capture a milestone or, yeah. So just kind of expanding and finding more women, in different stages to photograph.
Yep. I love that, actually, because
Yeah.
when you look back at your photos
Mm,
sometimes these days, there's such gaps in your adult life as to what
mm,
were you doing? What did you look like all of those moments. And yeah, it's because we
mhm.
start to, yeah, I suppose not so much like being in front of the camera, and prefer being
Yeah.
behind it. So what a great thing to do. And I think the great thing about owning your own business as well, Leslie, my gosh, you can dip in and out whenever you want. Like, that flexibility in terms of having kids, is
Yeah.
phenomenal. And just from my experience with my four, I found I was most creative after I'd had them. Like, literally within that first
I'm so excited
first
you
3
said that.
months or so. Like, I mean, obviously the sleep deprivation, that could have a huge amount to do with it. But it was, yeah, the first one I remember starting, scrapbooking. Oh my God, I hate scrapbooking.
Mhm.
I dropped so much money on that, but it was just trying to find something creative. The second one, I did a course, like signed up to do a course, and I can't remember what I did with the third, but obviously with Oak, I mean, I was just able to work the whole way through. So I was able to, do a bit of my own stuff, and then obviously launched Oak, the magazine, as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, always just felt motivated and creative. Yeah, it
Mm.
was really interesting.
I'm really excited that you said that because I feel like some of the stories around that I've, most likely internalized around motherhood and work and creativity and how they're not compatible. But
Yeah.
even in just the last, because I've essentially worked up until my due date, because thankfully I've had a really healthy pregnancy. I've felt really energetic. I haven't wanted to
Mm.
stop.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm not ready. But yeah, I'm really starting to think about how motherhood is one of the most radical creative acts that you could
Yep.
do, and how much creativity and raising a child have in common in terms of innovation and patience and thinking outside the box and, coming up with new ways to do things. And yeah, so I'm really excited to see how the new perspective will shift,
Yeah.
what my work looks like and what art looks like in business. So
Absolutely. And I think it's
yeah.
sometimes, like, everyone is so different. And every stage with your babies and your children are different as well. So what works for
Mm.
3 months will definitely not work for 6 months or 1 year or toddler,
I'll
or
keep that in
like,
mind.
everything changes. But sometimes it's just the mundane, like just wanting
Yeah.
something outside of that. And I think because you're at home, you usually have the space to create and the space to think. And most of us are in a 9 to 5 generally when we have kids. And there's just this structure that we grown accustomed to, and then suddenly we
Hmm.
have, we're pregnant and we have the baby, and there's just this free time. There's time to think and create, and I don't know, just be. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
absolutely.
don't often, I was actually having that conversation with a friend. I'm like, when else do you really get that
You
time?
don't. No.
Yeah.
I know. And I went back to work, back into corporate for the first after 3 months with all of them. And yeah, I sometimes think back, God, oh my gosh, why didn't I stretch that out longer? Like, why
Mm.
can't I have maternity leave when they're like, 12 and 13 and have a break?
Good
Oh
call.
my
Teenage
gosh.
years.
Oh my gosh. Teenagers, I'm dying. Anyway, you've got so much to look forward to. It
Oh,
really is
thank
the most
you.
exciting chapter ever. Um, yeah, it's hard, it's easy, it's an absolute roller coaster, much like business. So, yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it. Um,
Thank you.
Before I let you go, there's always one question that I love to ask, and that is, can you tell me about a friend of yours that we need to know about?
I thought about this question and I thought long and hard about it, and it's really tough for me because I feel like I'm almost playing favorites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you and your listeners to go to my Instagram, and you will find plenty of female business inspiration because I love to feature them all over my Instagram. And there's business coaches, painters, art therapists, PR specialists, yoga instructors, vegan chefs, naturopaths, doulas, like there's just so much goodness there. So I'm going to send you all to my Instagram, and then you will find a person there that I'm sure you connect with and feel a kindred spirit to.
Absolutely. I've been asked that question once before, and I did the same. I pleaded the fifth and said, "Nah,
Oh.
I am not picking one person. Like, that's just not going to help me at all." But
It's so
oh, it
hard.
absolutely is, especially when you work with so many amazing women, I think.
Yes.
What I will do, though, I'm going to point out one for you, if you don't mind, Leslie. And
Sure,
that
of
is
course.
Anna Scott, PR. She's a
Yes.
publicist.
Yes. Yep.
Anna's got some photos on your website. They look amazing. They may feature a magazine that I'm very, very familiar with, and was just like beside
Oh,
myself last night when I saw them. I'm like, oh my
oh,
gosh, like it's
amazing.
such a big thing to see your mag included. I know that everyone pulls in a like a Frankie or a peppermint, or even just those bigger ones,
Hmm.
those black and sort of white ones that aren't as colorful on the front cover. And oak's very colorful, so to see the pages of
Yes.
oak in a photo shoot was just amazing. And yeah, I've done something with Anna previously, and she's just an absolute fireball in the PR space. So absolutely love what she does.
Yes, she is a gem, and I'm pretty sure she brought multiple Oak magazines to the shoot that we just had a few
Gosh.
week ago. She was one of my last photo shoots
Oh,
before mat leave.
there
So,
you go. I
yeah.
love it. She needs to use more of those photos on her Insta. They are sensational.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I will let her know.
Yeah,
Or she'll listen to this and she'll know.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, look, I hope that we've inspired at least someone to, take the leap, whether it is a full step or just little half steps into their own business. And obviously, stay in your 9 to 5 as long as you can sometimes. And with the idea that you can gain as much knowledge and of processes and everything like that, that you can then transfer over to your business. I think that would be my thing. If I could go back in time, back into my 22-year-old self working in a newsroom, I would love to know how the advertising department worked and all of that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah, it's good
hindsight.
to think ahead of what you might want to know and what you can get paid to learn versus
Yeah.
having to learn on your own time
Yep.
and not get paid.
Absolutely. So hang in there
And
if you're
one
in there.
Yeah, and one other thing I will say is, last year I I facilitated a group coaching program and started doing some mentoring for female business owners. And one thing I asked them, even just I said, "Is this a possibility? Can you drop down a day at your
Yep.
work? If you're working 5 days a week, can you drop down to 4, or can you um, do extra hours on one day so that you can take more time off to work on your business plan on a Friday or something?" Like, just keep your mind open to different scenarios that could play out. You never know. Actually, two people that I coached, both got their bosses to give them a 4-day-a-week schedule. And so even just starting off small like that and taking little incremental steps until you're ready to let go of one thing and move on to the
Mm.
next, like that can be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how my first one started. I'd always worked full time and then found a part-time job in Melbourne, so I had to commute. And it was just having that extra time that's where my business started, was people saying, "Hey, could you do
Hmm.
this? Can you do that?" And before I knew it, yeah, the balance flipped. We've had Kate from the paint shed. She was a kindergarten teacher and again just took
Hmm.
Fridays off as her own day to paint and do what have you. And then obviously last year stepped into it full time. So yeah, it doesn't have to be that big leap, as you said. It can always just be dropping down a couple of days or half days or whatever it is, and just work on the side there. And yeah, you don't need a 5-year plan
Yeah.
these days, honestly.
No,
No one can plan.
it'll change anyways.
Exactly. So, yeah, just feel it out, see what happens. Well, my gosh, thank you for being my guest, Leslie. It was amazing to have you on the podcast. I actually could listen to you for hours. I love, oh my gosh, just your accent is
Oh.
amazing. Would love to go to the States and explore.
Oh.
So it's been fantastic to have you on. And obviously, yeah, I wish you all the best for obviously this year, and can't wait to watch that next chapter unfold, and what that means for your business as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And with the whole accent thing, I feel like I'm so in love with Australian accents. And anytime I tell someone that, they say, "Oh no, our accents are horrible." Blah blah blah. Like, U.S. is so much better. American so much better. I'm like, it's just because you don't hear my accent that much. I love the way you guys speak. It's
Really?
great.
I love the way you speak. I think it's amazing. Yeah, it's so, so cool. So thank you so much. And yeah, no doubt we will connect on Insta anyway. And hopefully sometime in the future we can do that coffee date one day.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and for, yeah, just allowing me to share some of my story with your listeners. I just really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions, we'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.